While living full-time in India at the ashram-village of my guru, Bhagawan Sri Sathya Sai Baba, for more than 27 years, my awareness of Lord Buddha grew. In 2002, I began writing about the living Buddha, His Holiness, the 14th Dalai Lama, for the Deccan Herald in Bangalore, India. I attended his teachings, took the Bodhisattva vows on 3 occasions, wrote about Buddhist monks and nuns, interviewed Tibetans living in exile in India, and visited Buddha's place of enlightenment, Bodh Gaya. How did I get this wonderful assignment? Sri Sathya Sai Baba came to me in a dream after I prayed to him intensely for guidance on how I could support myself in order to stay in India. In USA, I was a journalist, editor, poet, and professor of English. I wore many hats to support myself. I did not want to leave Swami or the peace I felt in his presence. After sincere prayers over an extended period of time, one night Swami appeared in my dream. He was wearing a bright yellow robe, not his usual saffron-colored one. He was barefoot in the sand in front of a high mountain. He was walking towards me, and hundreds of devotees waiting for him to join them on the top of the mountain. I could not understand why the huge crowd was waiting for him to walk up to where they were waiting. I decided to jump off the top into the soft sands of the trail leading upwards. In a trice, I was right next to him. I knelt down, asking permission to take Pad Namaskar, permission to touch the feet of God on earth. Suddenly, he stepped away from me, looking very serious. His eyes were shining like black diamonds. He signaled for me to wait. Then he kept going further up the mountain. I was shocked when he materialized a weapon in front of him, aimed it at the mass of devotees, too lazy to move to where he was, perhaps? And with no warning, he blasted the whole collection of them into ashes. I was full of humility. Suddenly, I saw my utter powerlessness. Now I surrendered even my desire to touch his feet. He asked me what I wanted. I said, "I need work, Swami." He smiled and said, "Yes. But I don't have the stamp of approval from the Indian government to work on a tourist visa," I replied. "Here," he laughed. I took what he was holding out to me. It was a postage stamp that was very popular in the USA, a Valentine's Day issue. On the front of the stamp was the word love. I turned the wee thing over, looking for the stamp of approval. Instead, printed in the tiniest text, were seemingly hundreds of sentences all the same. "I love you. I love you. I love you." I felt my heart would burst with joy. But what about the protocol? Swami was enjoying himself. He said, "Leave today, go to Bangalore to a newspaper and get a job." I burst awake and did not even go to morning Omkar in the mandir. I bathed and dressed and rushed to the Deccan Herald in Bangalore because it was the only newspaper I knew the location of at that time. I reached by bus before noon. In the entrance lobby, I asked for the editorial offices. The attendant showed me to the staircases leading there. When I entered the newsroom, the first thing I saw was a picture of Buddha over the door. Imagine it. Inside, I met with a lady editor who asked me what I wanted. When I told her I was a journalist and needed a job to continue staying at Puttaparthi, where my guru was, she simply asked, "Can you write?" I affirmed I could. "Then write me a story and let me see it." I decided to stay the night in a guest house in the city. From my Tibetan friends in Puttaparthi, I had learned that His Holiness, the Dalai Lama, would be staying overnight at Windsor Manor in the city and departing very early in the morning for a flight. Next morning, I was at Windsor Manor before 5. I began interviewing the crowds of Tibetans assembled in an orderly fashion, lining the roads that His Holiness would be riding on. The fragrance of the incense bundles they were carrying perfumed the air. Suddenly, the puffs of clouds floating in the sky turned a bright rosy pink, and His Holiness stood before us, waving and smiling. Then he got into a car with 2 monks and a driver. Slowly the car left us, and I rushed back to my room to write my first newspaper story in India. I delivered it to my editor, and she said she would read it and get in touch with me about further work. The next morning, the story was on the front page with my byline. I wrote for many different editors at the Deccan Herald from 2002 until 2017, when Swami sent me home to be with my beloved mother before her passing. And I am still here, unable to return to my beloved Bharat due to the pandemic. Remember, practice makes perfect. Surrender early, because whatever Baba wants, he gets.